I don't think it's controversial to say that religion has been the largest motivating factor for humanity throughout all of history. 62% of the world practices a specific religion. 72% of the world believes there is a God. Whether or not you personally believe in a higher power, you have to admit that religion is a crucial part of human existence. This is why a fantasy world where no religion is practiced seems dead and empty. The fact is that as long as there is life, there will always be those who choose to worship. This is true in The Legend of Zelda. In fact, being an atheist in The Legend of Zelda would be pretty hard when you constantly have gods interfering with everyday life. There are super powerful beings all over the place in the land of Hyrule. Which ones people choose to worship varies greatly. So gather your spirit orbs and offer them at a goddess statue, because we are doing a deep dive on the religions in The Legend of Zelda. Way back when The Legend of Zelda was created, it seems like Shigeru Miyamoto really wanted Christianity to be the main religion in Hyrule. We can see this in the cross symbolism used in the first two games. In the original Legend of Zelda, we can see Link sporting the cross on his shield, and in The Adventure of Link, we can see Link wielding a crucifix, which allows him to see ghosts as he travels to the Great Palace. We can also see that the gravestones in the first two games sport the cross as well. Finally, in A Link to the Past, the Book of Medora was just straight up called the Bible in the original Japanese version of the game. Eventually, it was decided by Nintendo that depicting real-world religions in their video games was not a very good idea. This led to them removing any reference to real-world religions, intentional or not, moving forward. The first time we meet any kind of being that seems to have otherworldly abilities would have to be the Windfish in Link's Awakening. This creature seems to have the godlike ability of creating world. Link is pulled into the dream of the Windfish, and the entire quest takes place in this nightmare. Eventually, Link defeats the nightmares in this world and ends the dream that the Windfish created. However, once the dream is finished, you can receive a secret ending to the game if you did not die at all during the game. You can see Marin flying away on the original version of the game, but in the HD remake, you can see a seagull flying away with Marin as a background. While it's not confirmed, it is theorized that Marin had her dream of flying over the oceans and visiting other lands granted by the Windfish. This means that this creature is capable of creating life, which one could argue makes it the first god in the Legend of Zelda lore. Once Ocarina of Time rolled around, the no real world religions rule was in force, which meant that the writers had to create their own pantheon. The first glimpse we got of this is the creation story we learned from the Great Deku Tree. He tells of the three golden goddesses who formed the world and life on it. He elaborates to tell of the Triforce, which is the power of these goddesses left behind. The Triforce has the power to grant great power to anyone that has a single piece of it. If someone were to gain possession of the full Triforce, they would be given a wish. It seems like there are no rules for this wish. We see incredible feats done by the Triforce. We see the destruction of an immortal evil. We see the revival of a kingdom and the destruction of a kingdom. We see curses undone, and we see the creation of a completely new Triforce. It also seems like without the Triforce, the world that it inhabits will fall to ruin. The three golden goddesses are not the only ones that are worshipped in Hyrule, however. There are many patron deities that watch over their respective realms. We meet the Great Deku Tree very early in the game. He watches and protects the children of the forest. It is suggested that he has great power in his realm. That being said, he is not immortal, as we see his death at the beginning of the game. However, a Deku Tree sprout arises when the curse on the forest is broken. This sprout goes on to live for thousands of years to come. It is possible that the Great Deku Tree we see in Breath of the Wild is the very same one we see sprouting in Ocarina of Time. We also see the patron deity of the Zora, a whale named Lord Jabu Jabu. His role and relationship to the Zora is unclear other than the fact that they worship him. The Zora also seem to worship more than just Lord Jabu Jabu. Throughout the Water Temple, we see many depictions of a dragon. It is theorized that this could be Farosh, or an ancestor of Farosh, but there is no definitive proof of this connection. The Gorons do not seem to have a patron deity. There are theories that Volvagia was once their god, but was corrupted by Ganondorf. I personally don't think that this is accurate because of the story of the Goron hero slaying this dragon. Why would you kill your own god? I think it is more likely that Gorons worship their ancestors. They tell great tales of their powerful forefathers and make statues of them to show respect. Fire Temple does not have any imagery to suggest that they believe or worship a god, but they do have many faces carved into their walls. The Gerudo and Ocarina of Time have their own distinct culture and religion. If we venture into the desert, we can come across the Desert Colossus. This is a giant sculpture in front of the Spirit Temple. Who exactly it is depicting painting is unclear. Some argue that this statue is a depiction of Hylia. This is a fair theory, but later games show that the Gerudo don't worship Hylia the same way the rest of the world does. However, this is a difference of a few thousand years. This leaves the Hyruleans. As far as we can tell, the royal family of Hyrule built 3 separate temples: the Temple of Time, the Forest Temple, and the Shadow Temple. The Temple of Time is the easiest temple to explain. This temple was constructed to protect the Triforce. As far as we know, the Master Sword has not been drawn since Skyward Sword. In this game, we see that it is used as the key to the Sacred Realm. The Triforce has been successfully protected up to the events of the game. It makes sense that the religion of Hyrule revolves around the Triforce, since we see what it is capable of when Ganondorf gets his hands on it. The Forest Temple doesn't seem to have any direct association with any specific religion. However, it is clear that the Hyrule royal family has some influence on the construction of this temple. We can see Triforce imagery and royal crests all over the place. What its purpose is and why it was abandoned remains a mystery. Finally, we have the Shadow Temple. This temple did not start as a sacred ground. You could argue that it is still not a sacred ground. This was the dungeon that was used by the royal family during the wars that preceded Ocarina of Time. The Sheikah tribe, under order of the royal family, used these cursed corridors for the torture of prisoners and the practice of taboo or unnatural experiments. This is likely what resulted in the creation of the Dead Hand. It is theorized that Bongo Bongo is the amalgamation of the tortured souls of those who once endured the agony of the Shadow Temple. This led to the grounds being referred to reverently, just as we hold sites such as the concentration camps of World War II. Horrible things happened here. Whether it makes these halls sacred or cursed is for you to decide. If we make our way over to the land of Termina and Majora's Mask, we can see an entirely new world. This world has developed its own religions independent of the Triforce. We see absolutely no depictions of the Triforce in this land except for very rare cases. The main religion embraced by the people of Termina revolves around the 4 giants that protect the land. Unlike the gods that watch over Hyrule, these giants actually do something when the people of Termina beg for their help. Each giant rests 100 steps in each cardinal direction from Clockdown. Within each region of Termina, there also rests what could be gods of their people. Aldua resides in the Woodfall Temple, Got in the Snowhead Temple, Georg in the Great Bay Temple, and Twinmold in the Stone Tower Temple. It is unclear which of these beings already existed and which are complete fabrications due to Skull Kid. Speaking of Skull Kid, he brings great and terrible power into Termina, the Majora's Mask. This mask, which was used for hexing rituals by an ancient tribe, contains very powerful magic. Magic powerful enough to curse every land that Skull Kid brings it to. It even has the power to seal away the giants, which are the most powerful beings in Termina as far as we can tell. At the end of the game, we also see that it has power enough to create a liminal space within the moon. Whether it is due to the strength of Link or because the magic of the mask was drained after calling down the moon, we are able to defeat the mask and destroy the magic held within. The people of Termina all seem to practice different religions. We see that the Deku worship in a manner that could be compared to the Native Americans. This involves sacred dance and chanting. The Gorons appear to worship in a similar way to the Gorons in Hyrule. Instead of fighting directly against each other though, they race each other. This would explain the racetrack at the top of Snow Peak Temple. The Zora don't really seem to worship anything in particular. You could argue that they worship the ocean, but I'm not too sure. The Zora we see don't give us any hint, and the Great Bay Temple definitely does not give any indication. Icona is in ruin by the time we make it there. The downfall of the kingdom is due to the pride of its people. There is never a specific god referenced by the people of Icona, but we can see that there are these faces carved into gravestones. We can see a similar face depicted on the mirror shield. This could be a reference to a god they worshipped. I would argue that death is one thing that is tied to every religion. So I think that whatever these faces represent, they are significant to the people that once lived in Icona. The last god that appears in Termina is Link himself, but this section is purely speculation. I believe that the fierce deity mask we receive at the end of the game is a direct representation of Link. For starters, it looks exactly like him. The other transformation masks in the game take on the appearance of the people they represent. When we interact with the people of Termina while wearing these masks, they refer to us by the name of their deceased friends. So, if the Fierce Deity mask makes us look like Link, would that not mean that it is a representation of Link? Throughout the game, we see the damage that Skull Kid inflicts on the people. Everyone is affected, either directly or indirectly, by his actions. They are all angry with this imp. However, we go around and undo the damage that Skull Kid has done. In turn, we receive masks that represent the joy we gave these people. If we talk to the happy mask salesman while wearing each mask, he can tell us the emotion each one represents. At the end of the game, after trading all these masks that house the emotions and memories of the people of Termina, we receive the Fierce Deity mask. I believe this mask contains the rage the people of Termina have for Skull Kid, but it also houses their perception of Link. They see him as a god, because when their own gods would not come to save them, Link did. It's a shame we don't get any other game set in Termina. The world building for this one-off world was incredible. If we fly over to the Oracle series, we get to see another land. In this land, we meet 3 oracles: Din, the Oracle of Seasons, Neru, the Oracle of Ages, and Feror, the Oracle of Secrets. If their names sound familiar, that's because they are named after the 3 golden goddesses of creation. We also see patron deities that are very similar to the Great Deku Tree. There is one in each kingdom we visit in the Oracle series. Now let's set sail and visit Hyrule as depicted in the Wind Waker. This version of Hyrule still holds the same beliefs as Ocarina of Time. We see symbolism of the Triforce above and beneath the waves. However, we are introduced to a few new gods. The first new god that we meet is Zephos, the god of winds. This god also has a brother named Cyclos. There are shrines built to these gods at Dragon Roost Island. The shrine for Cyclos was destroyed for some reason, which causes Cyclos to terrorize the seas with his cyclones. Link is allowed to harness the respective power of each god after learning the melodies of each god. Soon after, we also meet Valu. This dragon is said to be a descendant of Volvagia. Retrieving a scale from this dragon is what gives the Rito their ability to fly, and is likely the reason they evolved so quickly from Zora's. We also meet the Great Deku Tree, who is the Deku Tree sprout we met in Ocarina of Time. After that, we meet Lord Jabun, who is a descendant of Lord Jabu Jabu. When we obtain all 3 pearls, we unlock the Tower of the Gods. This is a tower that has a combination of magic and interesting technology. The line between the two is blurred in this tower. This tower was designed to be a test for anyone who wanted to descend below the waves and pull out the Master Sword. Exactly which gods are deciding this is not explicitly stated, but the Triforce appears when you connect all 3 of the goddess statues, so I think it's fair to assume that this is the 3 golden goddesses. Finally, we meet the Fairy Queen. She is the queen of the fairy realm and has control over the great fairies, who already have immense power within the realm. The purpose of the great fairies is unclear, but they are shown to gain power from rupees and are always willing to help Link on his adventures. I'm going to end the video here. I'm already several pages deep and I've only covered half the games. I will release part 2 next week, so make sure you're subscribed for that video. If I missed anything in this video, be sure to let me know in the comments.